Hey guys, this is Michael Cantrell, and you are watching Beyond the Garage, a podcast designed for the automotive aftercare industry, but we also take it outside the garage into areas of personal growth, business success, and anything that may benefit you as someone who is a professional or a DIY enthusiast in the automotive aftercare space. First guest ever on Beyond the Garage today, we have Michael Hill with us. Michael, how you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here.
So we have a very interesting topic today, Mike, we want to talk about, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But before we do, for those who are watching this that do not know who you are, let's just talk real quick a little bit about your background. Why don't you take us back to how you got into the industry, kind of where you specialize, and the good, the bad, and the ugly that you've seen over the years as you've been involved in the automotive aftercare space.
All right. So my background is basically in the physics and engineering world. I work for a lot of tier one automotives and doing engineer work for them. And I've worked for ATI Labs for a little over 18 years. And we do basically surface technology, which is all the tier one automotives for their clear coat, their paint systems, all that type of stuff. And basically been detailing for quite a bit now, and used to do it as a hobby type of thing, and then got more and more to the high end stuff. And I worked in this lab, getting into aftercare products. You kind of start reading some of this stuff and seeing their claims, and then just like that's kind of an impossibility to do. So we got in and made some testing for the aftermarket car care type stuff, and actually started testing this stuff to see if it could do what they said it would do. Worked for almost all the different chemical companies that are out there now and doing testing and development for them, and then eventually started my own line a couple of years ago. Gives me an unfair advantage because I know where all the competition is.
Sure.
And know where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of the Wild West out there. You got the medicine man pulling up into town and claiming all this type that they can do, that if you read the ingredients and look at the makeup of the product, it's not realistic. And then by the time the people who are installing it figure that out, that guy's already rode off into the sunset, and here comes the next guy.
All right. So I'm listening to you talk about your history, and you got a chemical background. You've been working in a testing lab for years. I'm going to assume that you've tested most of the major brands out there in the ceramic space, as well as you deal with the actual automotive manufacturers and what they're trying to put on their vehicles as something that rolls off the lot. Is that correct?
Correct. So everything from Alibaba, just random sites. We've ordered about everything on the planet that we can find, just to test it to see, if something crazy might be out there, for the $2 range in a bottle, from Alibaba up to the, $300 or $400 or $500, $600 per bottle type stuff.
So what I want to try to avoid today, if we can, is talking specifically about manufacturers, because that's not my goal. But I do want to ask a couple questions in general about some of these things. You were telling me before we got on the podcast, we were talking earlier, that every time you test a product in the lab, you effectively document those results and you put it into a database that effectively creates, if there was such a thing, almost like a DNA sample for that product. And every product that you test, you now run against the database to see if, in fact, maybe it has a DNA father or mother out there in a product that you've tested before, because, as you said, a lot of these products have new claims, but they're not actually new products.
Correct.
So
changes stuff, a percentage here, percentage there will change performance and things like that, but it doesn't rearrange the entire spectrum. Version 428 where these guys are at, it doesn't change that much.
Gotcha. So in the world of ceramic coatings, which let's try to agree on a date range here. When was the first ceramic coating launched that you can recall?
I'll just give you the first one I tested was in 2016. That was the first one I started testing. It's been ceramic base coatings and things like that from like Simoniz and Diamond Coat that were probably around a little bit earlier than that.
Gotcha. But the first test that you can recall doing on an actual aftermarket ceramic coating was maybe 2016. I gotcha. So ATI, which is a private lab in the United States, how does it compare to the labs that we see typically marketed in the literature from some of the other products that are out there? Typically we see like SGS is probably the most common lab out there, and I think it's probably because they've got 5,000 partner labs across the world. But we typically see SGS labs as the de facto standard when somebody is saying they have a certified product.
So this isn't to kick dirt on anybody or any of that type of stuff, but like ATI Labs is multiple $100 million in equipment there, and we're private labeled testing lab for your tier one automotives. We're TS, ISO, basically all your automotive standard certified. So we have to test within a certain realm or specific range of test that we have to stay in. And those are checked up on quarterly, and then yearly we have to pull up our testing data to make sure that we adhere to these standards.
Got it.
There are a lot of labs out there that are kind of pay to play. Hey, pay us a certain amount of money, we'll put what you want to on this literature, and here you go.
We got into that, and we got into that in the previous episode where I talked a lot about 7H, 9H, 10H, 12H, 20H, and how you can basically put any number behind or in front of H and call it, and it's really just a marketing term because the labs haven't really standardized on any type of testing equivalency. So there's no baseline in which they're even working off of. And even within the industry, we were with IDA at one of the shows recently, and I asked them, is there any kind of a standard that has been developed by the IDA, the International Detailing Association? And the answer is no. So we know that the testing parameters around the H scale obviously have issues, but that's not the topic we want to get into today. Today, we want to get into a different topic because when it comes to marketing products, what we have noticed is that there's usually a flavor of the day. So it started obviously when ceramic coatings launched. There were a variety of coatings that came out, and there were a variety of hardnesses, which was the H scale. People talked about, I've got a 5H product, a 7H product, a 9H product. And then as ceramics evolved, when you got into maybe 2019, 2018 or 19, you started to begin to see sprayable ceramics, where you had a water-based solution instead of a solvent-based solution. A little bit easier to use, obviously a lot less on the longevity side of that product as far as how long it's going to last, but great hydrophobicity and great results, which is where the DIY market really came into a level of understanding of the term ceramic. But since then, we have begun to see other terms pop up that I think probably confuse a lot of people in the industry. And I thought we'd go through a couple of them before we get to the main one today. But having said that, let's talk about Boraphene for a second. So there's some manufacturers out there talking about Boraphene coatings and how they benefit your vehicle. And in all the research that I did, Boraphene to me effectively came back as a fancy way of saying Pyrex, like the cooking-ware that you bought in the 90s that you baked in the ovens.
Right.
So
Boraphene and used in the technology field is completely different than what the coating companies out there now that are saying this Boraphene is borosilicate glass. So those are completely different than a Boraphene itself.
Okay, got it.
It is more used as a conductor, kind of like your nano tubes and things like that. So Boraphene is in that industry, but when it's used in the industry for detailing, it's borosilicate glass.
Borosilicate glass. And how does that differ from a traditional ceramic coating?
It's great at conducting heat, where heat doesn't affect it. But as far as like its hardness, things like that, most of your silicates, siloxanes, SiO are going to be in the same realm of things. So
Okay, gotcha.
not really gaining or losing anything unless you were in Arizona or your car is on fire all the time. There's no benefit to that.
Okay, so it conducts heat. So is it fair to say that it's kind of like when I use the Pyrex dish to bake a lasagna, it evenly distributes the heat across the lasagna so that it cooks everything at an even temperature? Is this trapping heat underneath it when you put it on your vehicle?
It just disperses it different. So when they made Pyrex, they basically made it to where heat and cooling down wasn't shattered. That was the main purpose of making Pyrex.
Got it.
So in the detailing world, there's really no need for it unless you're cooking eggs on your hood or something.
Again, back to Arizona in the summer. I got you.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the next one. The next one, I don't even know if you've heard of this or not. But there's a manufacturer out there that is marketing Tri-Phene technology. Now, I did all my research on Tri-Phene, and what I came up with was a trademark. That was it. I couldn't find anything that actually told me what the three things are, which I assume there's three things that go into Tri-Phene technology, since tri means three. But have you ever heard of Tri-Phene? And if you have you ever even seen something like that tested in a lab?
The only thing is that's a word mix-up of different phenes, graphene, borafene, any of those type of thing, three of them mixed together.
Okay.
It's kind of like loosely like the ceramics. I mean, there's so many things that you can concoct together that would make that a ceramic.
Okay, gotcha.
That's just so loose that it's just, you can't really put anything in that direct thing.
Okay, I got you. Now, you just touched on the topic that we want to talk about today in one of the phenes that you mentioned when we were talking about Tri-Phene. And that topic is graphene. Graphene, to me, seems to be that's the hot topic buzzword right now. Whether you're at a SEMA show, whether you're at Mobile Tech Expo, or even if you're at like the National Car Wash Show, everybody is talking about putting graphene into their products because it adds a extra layer of strength, hardness, or protection on top of a ceramic coating. Now, I haven't yet seen any kind of a test related to graphene as far as what it does in a laboratory differently than what a ceramic coating per se does. But understanding that you've probably seen every product out there, and at the same time you've tested most of them, help me break down the graphene scenario in coatings today and why it's beneficial. Is it beneficial? Is there a reason to put a graphene infused coating on your vehicle over just a ceramic coating? What are the pros and the cons as we get into talking about graphene? First of all, when you hear the word graphene in a coating, what's the first thing you think of as somebody who's an industry veteran who has tested every product out there?
It's buzzword. You started off with Teflon infused, then the titanium run was really small, and then graphene come along. If you follow like tech news and things like that, as soon as they show a huge advancement, something, the detailing world is about 12 to 18 months behind before something is infused with it.
Got it.
We saw the same thing with borafene. It was basically said, hey, is this the new graphene nanotubes or carbon nanotubes? Is this going to take over this? And we laughed with some of the guys in the lab when we were testing this. It's like, there's going to be a coating with this in it in no time. And here we are. So basically graphene is one of those things. If you had a full solid content of graphene in your coating, then yes, you would have something substantial, but you would also be at a cost of multitudes more than what you are right now. And then you have to make that lattice structure work with that because they're not going to adhere each other. So if you were to look at this, and I think you and I talked about it under microscopes, that you would see your lattice weave of your crystalline structure, and then you'll just see black specks randomly placed throughout the structure. So I explained this to somebody if you had a complete structure made out of graphene, you would have something substantial. However, it would be the same now if you were to have a bullet-resistant vest but you've got 1-inch patches sporadically placed through that. If you go across that little patch, then yes, you're going to be in great shape. But to hit that is, minute. You're worried about
Gotcha.
the full structure.
So let me ask, if a product says that it has graphene in it today, and let's talk about what I'm gonna call a professional grade coating. And for those of you that are watching right now, I'm not talking about a sprayable ceramic. I'm talking about a ceramic coating that you would have to apply with the microfiber applicator. There will be cure time involved. It's probably a solvent-based product, Mike. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So you've got these ceramic products that you're applying and you're curing. For somebody to add into that 50 milliliter bottle enough graphene to actually make a difference over the ceramic that's already in the bottle, the SiO2. How much graphene are we talking about? Are we talking, hey, we want to put the word graphene on our bottles, so we're going to add an eyedropper drop, or what does it really take to make a difference for that graphene to actually have a resultable difference in the way that the coating protects the vehicle?
So right now, in order to label that on your system, you have to be at over 1%.
Okay.
So if you take 50 milliliters of that, then you've got 0.5 milliliter that have to be that content.
Okay.
In testing everything I have now, like I said, there may be something I haven't got my hands on. Your adhered graphene concentration is about 0.002%. You may be looking at 600 strands in the entire vehicle, which would make up about a 1/4 inch square on the entire vehicle.
But obviously spread out across the entire surface of the vehicle. So if I went back and I applied that to the bulletproof vest scenario that you were describing, if I was adding graphene as an extra layer of protection, I could basically circle the Nike logo on my shirt and say that on my shirt, that's how much graphene is covering my shirt, the amount that would basically cover the Nike logo.
Maybe the logo, maybe. It's that small of amount.
Maybe the logo. Okay, so are you saying that at the end of the day, graphene literally is a buzzword because nobody's putting enough of this into their product that actually it's a difference maker?
Yeah, that's 100% from everything I've tested now. And this isn't, not against anyone. This is just saying this is your adhered solid content. In order for you to kind of hit what you're looking for to increase scratch resistance, and that's basically what graphene is there for, you'd have to be over 40% solid concentration to make that happen. But graphene is black. So if your bottle has that enough concentration on it, then you're going to have a white car that's now gray.
Okay, wait a second. I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, because everybody has seen sprayable bottles of graphene infused products, and you always see the black residue at the bottom, right? And then they say shake the bottle up good before you use it. So what you're saying is, in order for there to be enough graphene in that bottle to give you adequate coverage over the course of your vehicle when you apply it, the graphene would actually affect the color of the vehicle, because the graphene is inherently a dark or black colored additive. So for you to be able to have a layer of protection that was actually real, it would be visible because your car would change colors, because it would either get muted or darker, or if it was a white car, it would turn gray, or if it was a red car, it would turn maroon, because the graphene is going to actually begin to mask the color of the car because of the actual color in the graphene itself.
Correct. Now, granted, you're only looking at half a micron to a micron of adhered solids, but you still would see, that's what the product is the black. If you were to do a full graphene coating, you would have a black coating you were to be applying.
That's insane. So outside of having a black car, what you're saying is graphene is going to affect the color of your vehicle if, in fact, there was a product out there that had enough graphene in it to actually do what it says the graphene does. Okay, so if, in fact, a car did have enough graphene, or a product did have enough graphene in it to protect your car the way they're claiming graphene protects, how would that affect the price of the product? Because I see graphene sprays for $20 and I see graphene infused, 3-year coatings for $100 or $200. How much more would it cost to actually get enough graphene into those products to where they would create that layer of protection that you're talking about? Let's move past the fact that it might discolor your vehicle, but to actually get the layer of protection on there, what kind of a cost in this specific additive to the product are we talking about?
So what they're using right now is a graphene oxide, which is a byproduct of making graphene. So it's basically the leftover residue. That's what they're adding to this. But even that, you're still going to be substantially increasing your price. And then you have to worry about your particle size being able to infuse in whatever your lattice structure or crystalline structure that you've got to make that adhere to. So, I mean, there's so many other issues you're going to have to look into putting into that instead of just putting a powder into it. You've got to make it adhere. You got to make it bond to. You got to make the structure work together as well.
Okay, so
I would probably say tenfold of what your current one costs.
I'm hearing you say a lot of things that I think we need to unpack right there. Number one, you're saying that the price of a product would be 10x to get enough graphene in it to actually make a difference. Number two, it's not just as simple as saying, here's my ceramic spray. Let me add, and I'm being facetious when I say this, but let me add a scoop of graphene to that, and now I can sell it as a graphene ceramic spray, because that's just putting something else into the pot. That's not actually going through the chemistry and the technical adaptation and the understanding of how these two things are going to bond together and how they're going to lay out as a structure and what they're going to do when they hit your car's clear coat or glass or plastic. That's a chemistry lesson in and of itself, not just something that you can say, give me an additive and I'll put an eyedropper in and now it's a graphene coating. Have you seen anybody in the industry that you've talked with, worked with, run into that's actually gone through the process in research and development and engineering to make that happen?
Not for the detailing industry, not even close. And just the amount of time and effort it would take to make that, it's not worth it, to be honest. The benefits versus the cost is not there.
It's amazing. It's amazing because it's the biggest buzzword in the market today. You always hear people talk about how you missed the boat on something, right? You're late to the game. And I think in the detailing world, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but by the time that it reaches the guys that are doing like the car washes, the tunnel wash at your Texaco station or your Shell station, and they've got a sign up that says graphene infused coating as you're going through the tunnel. By the time it gets to those guys, it's pretty well played out. I mean, they're the last guys to adopt anything. And when we were at the National Car Wash Show this year, that was the buzzword at the car wash show, was graphene, and how they're adding graphene into the car washes. And there's now a graphene layer that goes on, and again, when you're going through a tunnel wash, let's just be real. There's no level of ceramic protection that you're going to get out of a tunnel wash where they're spraying it on. And then, it's part of the rinse off process when you go through there. It may help with some of the things because you've added a drying agent or something like that in, and you can agree or disagree on that. But you're not really seeing any level of protection from a ceramic coating at the car wash because, of course, the car wash doesn't want to protect your vehicle. They want you to come back to the car wash.
Right.
So
they're making their money off of your car being dirty every 2 or 3 days and coming back in.
Exactly. So if they're adopting a buzzword, that means it's run its course through our industry and everybody at this point has adopted it. So it's literally impossible. When I look around, I can't avoid the word graphene. And so I began to research it. And what I found was I couldn't find anybody that actually could say anything about graphene that made any sense. And there are, numerous manufacturers out there that are touting graphene as a backbone in their coating product, whether the coating is a solvent-based coating or whether it's a water-based coating, whether it's sprayable, whether you have to hand apply it. They're talking about graphene like it is something amazing. And in everything that I did, and it sounds like in everything that you've come across, either A, there's not enough graphene in the product to make a difference at all, Or B, if there was, it would be so outrageously expensive that nobody would buy it.
And that's, like I said, graphene itself is a fantastic product used in other fields for what it does. But the detailing industry is, just take for example the car washes, and I've seen this done at a manufacturer. They take a teaspoon of graphene oxide and dump it in a 55-gallon drum, and now it's the graphene coating.
And now it's a graphene coating, right? And so the reality is, how many car washes does it take for that 55-gallon drum to get used? Thousands?
Imagine a ton, yeah.
Yeah. And so you're dispersing a teaspoon into 55 gallons. I don't have a calculator that's that good in my head, but it's a very small amount into a very large drum. And that would kind of be like, putting an eyedropper full of vanilla into a 55-gallon drum of coffee. Is the coffee going to taste like vanilla? Probably not. I mean,
yeah, we make a joke in the lab and stuff about when they do these new additives. It's kind of like what is the popular flavored waters where they just say it's that next by it.
Right.
LaCroix, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is cherry flavor. You drink it, you're like, I don't see the cherry in it. They're like, oh, well, it rode in the same truck with the coffee water.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we laugh about on the bunch of these, companies out there. It says it's Teflon infused or any of this type of stuff that is so minute.
So having said that, and understanding that graphene is literally just a buzzword, that there's no value in the word being on a product other than being able to say it's graphene infused, because we're not seeing a chemical benefit. We're not seeing a hardening benefit. We're not seeing any type of a benefit that is structurally enough to lay across the entire surface of a vehicle. You may get enough in there to where if you concentrated all the graphene in a bottle into one space on the vehicle where the graphene was all at, you might get a 1-inch square where there was enough graphene to accomplish some kind of benefit for that vehicle. So the question is, if graphene is just a buzzword, then what do people really need to be looking for when they're talking about putting a sprayable or a hand-applied coating on their vehicle?
I'm just looking for your solid content, what it's made out of, where they're pulling your raw materials from. There's so much, and there's even a product name that's now called snake oil that is out there in the detailing world. And if you look at the variations of everybody's product, the variation is super small on most companies.
Okay.
Even with your graphene type stuff, there are some companies that are giving it their best effort, but the amount of R&D and research that would take to make that a tangible additive would be substantial.
So when you say the word snake oil, that's an actual brand of a product. That's not just that's not an affectionate term that we're talking about a bunch of products that don't work, which is historically what the term snake oil stands for. But I've seen this product before, and I've actually seen it at shows where it looks like, and God bless them, they're literally putting it onto a napkin or a paper towel and wiping it onto a vehicle. And this is the product, correct me if I'm wrong, that is supposed to like take oxidized paint and bring it back to life. Is that the product we're talking about?
Yes, removing scratches, that type of stuff. There is a very niche market for that. If you put that on, or say you've got a 4-year-old car that, your neighborhood car wash is done, the kids for fundraisers have washed, and you're like, man, we're going to go trade this thing in. Let me apply this product to give it this glamour shot, or putting lipstick on a pig.
Okay, I got you.
To carry it there and, and sell it. Or if you've got
lipstick on a
glamour
pig
shot of your car, then make that happen. And like I said, that's one of those niche products that has that niche market that belongs in.
So this is a product, and again, not knocking it, but this is a product that has a very specific use case. I'm trying to sell my car. I want it to look better than it normally does. I don't care how long that lasts. I just need it to look good enough so that I can take the photos, and maybe when the guy shows up to buy it, it still looks that good until he drives away.
Absolutely.
We don't care what the long-term detriment to the vehicle's paint or clear coat is. We don't care how long the product actually lasts. We're just trying to, like, this sounds like a great product for a used car dealer, right? They bring a car in on trade. They want to put, like you said, they want to put some lipstick on a pig. They get it out there on the lot. Somebody buys it. They drive it away. And in 30 days, you begin to see all the oxidization coming back. And the paint, you begin to see the paint for what it really is.
And there's a lot of stuff in the used car markets that is just for dealerships that they will polish and put on these vehicles. If you guys have ever bought a used vehicle, it looks great. You wash it a couple times, you're like, man, it's just completely different look than what I purchased 30 or 60 days ago. All that product is starting to bleed out of the scratches, the paint, that type of stuff. I mean, that's a product they've been using in the used car industry for years and years.
Is it fair to say that this goes back to applied solids or adhered solids? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to use overgeneralized terms, it doesn't matter how strong or how hard or how thick the coating is that you're putting on. What really matters is when the coating is on and then it's been buffed out and it's done and it's cured, what's the level of adhered solids that remains?
Yeah, when we're talking about coatings and things, for the last couple of years, everybody asks, well, what's your solid content in your bottle? That matters extremely little. What matters at the end of the day when we do our testing, okay, of that 99% solid content you're claiming in your bottle, which if you can shake it and if it's moving around, it's not 100% or 99% or even close to that, because you would be basically moving around solids that were just almost like a gel.
They wouldn't move.
Yeah, no. So that has always kind of tripped me out. With like, oh, it's 99% solids. It's like it's clear and it's liquid and it's watery. How is this a 99% solid base with 1% fluid? That doesn't add up. But anyway,
yeah, I've always looked at 99% solids, which is impossible because you'd literally be shaking a brick, right? You wouldn't be able to get it out of the bottle if it was 99% solid. But I look at 99% solid kind of in the same way I look at people when they say my coating will last for X number of years. Because what I've learned over the years is the testing methodology that some of these manufacturers are using is they'll say that a coating will last until the very last speck of the coating has left your vehicle.
Correct.
And listen, full disclaimer, I own a brand, NextGen, you own a brand, CCI. Those are the only two brands that we'll talk about today. When we test our products, we don't test to a 0% tolerance. We test to a 40% tolerance because everything that we have seen from laboratory testing and real world tests as well says that somebody who gets a coating on their vehicle, that coating is going to look good to the naked eye all the way down to about 40%. And once you get below 40%, you begin to see and notice degradation in the quality of the coating, whether that's the shine, the hydrophobicity, so on and so forth. So when we test, our 0 is actually 40% versus several other manufacturers out there whose 0 is 0. And the example that I've always given is there's a product out there, I won't name names, but there's a product out there that offers they say this is a 9-year product. And that blew me away. And to be honest with you, the first time I saw it, I was intrigued. I was like, man, I want to know more. Because anytime that somebody launches a product in our industry, I want to figure out if have they figured something out? Because at the end of the day, we should be promoting whatever the best products are that are out there. We should be talking about these products and screaming them from the mountaintops, if in fact they do what they say they do, because our space is small enough that everybody should be able to benefit from great products being developed. So I reached out to this manufacturer and I said, walk me through your 9-year coating. I said, how long has it been out? Well, they said it's been out for 2 years. I said, okay, how much research and development went into it before the 2 years that it's been launched? They said, well, about 18 months. I said, okay, so you guys are at about 3.5 years since you started developing the product, and you're calling it a 9-year product. So I looked at the comments on the ad, because it was a Facebook ad, and these guys were just getting torched. So I said, you guys are getting torched in your comments. Help me understand how you got to 9 years. And they said, well, we hired an independent lab and the lab decided to do a test where they do an advanced weathering test that emulates a number of years on your vehicle as far as weather would be hitting your car. And it took 9 years of emulated weather before the coating was gone. And I said, so in 9 years, the coating was completely gone. They said, yeah, completely gone. I said, well, when was the coating halfway gone? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, if I got a car painted and they told me that the paint was going to last for 9 years, but in 9 years, my car was bare metal, I wouldn't have waited 9 years to get my car repainted. There would have been a point in my car's paint life where I would have said, this doesn't look good anymore. I've got to get my car repainted. So where's that point in the 9 years? Because you're telling me in 9 years is when the last speck of paint fell off the car. And they said, well, they didn't have that information. And to be fair, you're talking to somebody who's in customer service, not somebody who's in research and development. But when we see products that advertise like that, you immediately get this hope. Wow, somebody's figured something out. Typically find out, oh no, it's just marketing. It's just using the word graphene. And so
many variables in that I really hate in this industry. We put years on it. We can take the same vehicle, the same coating, the same prep process, and depending on how that vehicle lives its life, if you've got a vehicle that goes through the auto washes weekly, it's a mom van, they take it to the church fundraiser wash, or you've got the other one, car number 2 sits in a climate control garage,
right?
Hand washes it. Every time he washes it, he puts a protectant spray over it.
That car gets driven only on the weekends. They put 1,000 miles a year on that car versus 25,000 on a van.
And you're going to tell me this 6-year coating or 5 year, whatever year is going to be the same on both vehicle, and you don't take into accountability all the variables on there. There's no way that you can tell me that that's how it's going to be. Even your prep process, if 3 different detailers prep that vehicle, then it's going to be prepped differently every time.
Right.
That's going to greatly affect your adhesion, all of that type of stuff on that vehicle. The painter in that factory that they decided to overmix something in the clear, it's going to affect stuff. I mean, there's just so many variables out there. Even with our company, I hate putting a year term on there. So what we decided to do is severely undercut what we think it would be. And like, worst case scenario, here's where you're going to be at. If you want to get crazy and do take care of it, then you're going to be extremely pleased with double or triple the life of what we're claiming.
What you're telling me, Michael, is not uncommon. At least it's not uncommon amongst detailers, guys that are actually applying coatings. I think that the biggest token of hate in our industry around ceramic coatings goes into how many years does it last? Because at the end of the day, it is such an unbelievably variable number that you can't really define it. I mean, we sell a spray coating that lasts a week to 9 months. If you put our spray coating on your car in South Florida in the rainy season and you drive every day up and down A1A, you're going to get sand and dirt and rain and debris that beats on that car all day long. You're going to need to apply that spray probably every time you wash the car. If you apply that spray to a vehicle in Scottsdale, Arizona in the winter, you're going to get 6 months out of it, 9 months out of it, because it's the perfect climate, perfect temperature. Never rains, never gets cold, never gets hot, never has a lot of wind blowing. So there's such a variable range of unknowns that go into how long should a coating last that I think most detailers hate putting a number on it. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear most detailers say is, we'll give you a lifetime warranty on the coating. We don't care what the manufacturer says. You just bring your car into us once a year and let us service the vehicle. Let us maintain the vehicle's finish, and we'll give you a lifetime warranty on the coating, because that detailer knows what the car is going to require from a service perspective and what the finish and the coating is going to require from a maintenance perspective in order to keep the coating maintained, which keeps it lasting as long as it possibly can. And I'm gonna go out on a limb because I know we've talked about this in the past, but some dealers would take a $10 coating and give it a lifetime warranty just like they would a $500 coating.
Absolutely.
As long as they can get that customer to come in and let the detailer do maintenance, washes, and details on the vehicle. Because at the end of the day, even though we live in a world where we talk about everything being easier and quicker and less difficult to do, the reality is there's always a byproduct in that cost association, right? There's always something that you're giving up to get what you're getting. And when we talk about coatings, I was having this conversation the other day at a conference where the topic of, manufacturers who say things like never wash your car again after you apply our coating. That conversation came up and we were having this conversation. And I said, the best example that I can give you is Chevrolet makes a lot of different cars. They make a Suburban, which is that's your mom going to soccer vehicle. And those are pretty bulletproof, right? You change the oil, you change the tires, you change the brakes, and you do some routine maintenance every 30, 60, 90,000 miles. Pretty standard for a vehicle in the industry. Now, Chevrolet also makes a Corvette. The Corvette is a high-performance sports car. It requires a little bit more maintenance and a little bit more upkeep if you want it to continue to drive the way it should drive as a high-performance sports car. So you have to do a little bit more maintenance. And everybody that buys the Corvette understands I'm getting something that's high performance. It's going to require a little bit more high maintenance. Now, here's what's interesting. Chevrolet also makes Top Fuel dragsters, or at least they put their logos on Top Fuel dragsters because they provide parts to the Top Fuel dragsters. When a Top Fuel dragster goes down a quarter-mile strip in, 3 or 4 seconds, what does the mechanic team have to do to that Top Fuel dragster after it does one run of 4 seconds?
Yeah, they rebuild that complete engine.
They literally rebuild the complete engine. Now, arguably, this is the most high-performance engine on the planet. It carries a car down a quarter-mile lane faster than anything else in the world. It's high performance. It's also high maintenance. And one of the things that we have noticed all of our detailers talking about is the need for routine maintenance on high-performance coatings. Because the higher the performance of the coating is, the better you want it to do, the level of hydrophobicity that you want to get out of the coating, the longevity of lifespan that you want to get out of the coating, the level of protection that you want to get out of the coating, all comes down to proper maintenance. Because at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong on this, when you buy a new car or a used car, any car for that matter, except for those with single stage paint, I'll exclude those from this conversation. But when you buy a car, you get 2 different kinds of paint on that vehicle. You get paint with pigment, which is the color of the car, and then you get paint without pigment, which is the clear coat. And you would know better than most because you work in a laboratory that deals with OEM factory paints. The clear coat goes on the vehicle to protect the paint with the pigment.
Right.
They don't want the paint with the pigment being they don't want it to have to deal with the elements. They don't want it to have to deal with sun and with debris and dust and dirt and contaminants and chemicals. They don't want that paint with pigment to have to endure all of that. So they put the clear coat on top of it. Well, that just means the clear coat is now the sacrificial barrier on that vehicle. So when you put a ceramic coating on a car, you're basically elevating the ceramic coating to now it's the sacrificial barrier, and the clear coat is now protected. Well, that just means that everything that was abusing the clear coat is now abusing the ceramic coating. But the ceramic coating is less expensive than repainting your car. It's less expensive than buying a new car because your paint looks horrible. So it becomes the sacrificial barrier. And within that, you then have layers of maintenance that can prolong that sacrificial barrier, continue to keep its lifespan extended, keep that hydrophobicity. Everybody likes hydrophobicity, right? It doesn't matter if the coating actually protects your vehicle or not. If the water beads up, that's what everybody cares about. They want that water to bead up. They don't understand the difference between hydrophobic and hydrophilic. They don't want hydrophilic. They don't want water to sheet, even though it's the same benefit. They want water to bead up. And so if you want to maintain that finish where the water beads up, you've got to do routine maintenance. And that's where that's where we get into things like how do you maintain your ceramic coating and what's a good topper to put on your ceramic coating. which then of course leads back to our initial discussion of what is the good topper to put on? Is it a graphene topper? Is it an SiO2 topper? I think that there's so many buzzwords out there that people talk about. And even when you're not talking about graphene and you're just talking about SiO2 content, people want to know how much SiO2 is in that product, which is crazy because most manufacturers can't even tell you. They don't understand how much is in the product. They also don't understand what the composition of the product itself even is. I mean, when you're talking about ceramic coatings, Mike, is it a fair assessment to say that the majority of the coatings that are manufactured, I'll say throughout the world, because there's really only, there's a handful of people that are actually making their own coatings in the US. Beyond that, there's a couple of large companies that make coatings and private label to most of the people in the US. And then there are a ton of overseas coatings. So if I look at the coatings all across the world and I want to understand from a global perspective how that coating works and what people are doing with it, how does that break down for you when you're testing a coating in the lab as far as making sure that it is consistent with what it needs to be?
I mean, you just have to see what they're, so basically I'll go off their claims on it and I'll do testing off of that. And then probably 95% of the times I have to go back and reevaluate testing systems because claims versus actuality are so different.
When you're looking at all these products, is there a chemical makeup or family that most of these fall into? Is there a generalized formulation that just has variables, but for the most part, everything stays very similar with just variants within that formula that most products in the world stay in, or are there wildly different formulas for different products?
Most everything for your coatings for most companies are, you kind of have a baseline, like you have, I probably put it over saying, okay, you've got a Coke. This one's vanilla Coke. This one's cherry Coke.
Okay.
This is, I mean, you've got a couple of different things, but your base is the same on probably 80%, 90% of coatings. So saying there's a wild variation, I mean, there's a couple of companies out there that the formulations are completely different on. But those companies are few and far between.
Again, not getting into too many details, but I know that our relationship has been primarily R&D over the years. We've developed a relationship with you, my company, NextGen, which really involved tons and tons of testing, primarily of products that we never launched. Because after we tested them, we determined that this iteration doesn't work. It doesn't do what we needed it to do. So we spend a bunch of time in the lab trying to figure out what works. And then we take it out after the lab says it works. Then we take it out and we put it to a test in real life. And I know that when it comes to families of products or types of chemistry, I believe our product and your product sit in a specific family of chemistry, which is I'll use the word different than a lot of the other big brand names that are out there. And I know that in our case, we've been testing and using products since 2015, when we didn't have a coating, right? We were using G-Technic, right? We were using G-Technic because our head of professional detailing, who's in Atlanta, does a lot of work with Porsche North America, and Porsche had a contract with G-Technic because they're a European company and G-Technic's a European company. And so we were forced to use that until we could figure out what we didn't like about it. And then we started to get into how do we change this? What can we do to make something better? Which, of course, to me in the detailing industry is where all the magic happens, because we have so many guys that are out there today that are just trying to figure out how to do it better. What can I do to tweak this? What can I do to make this just a little bit better? How can it go on a little bit easier? How does it go on and finish out a little bit better? How do I not have to deal with high spots anymore? How does it level by itself? These are all the things that I think become innovation in our industry. And probably you see that more than me because you're testing all these products.
Yeah, I mean, the innovation in the detailing world is very slow paced. There's a lot of coatings out there that's been around there for 10 years that have a percentage of stuff kind of moved around. And the mindset of a lot of companies now is this works, we're going to leave it alone. And there's no just heavy push for innovation. Just one of the things when I got into this industry, I'm like, man, there's so much room for growth and for lack of better terms, low-hanging fruit to go after and do some innovation and do some changing and things like that, which, just like I said, for my company kind of made it easy because we're like, hey, we're going to put a ton into R&D, a ton into testing. And, our company's motto, in God we trust, all others must provide data. We hold firm on that. Like I said, we can show anything anybody wants to see.
Well, I find it interesting that, when it comes to data, most people want to produce an SGS document, that large testing firm. And I've covered this in other podcasts. Those are, to me, not worth the paper that they're printed on. Now, that's just me personally talking, because I've gone through the R&D process where we spend thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in developing a product that makes it not just work for us and our team internally, but makes it usable for the general population, right? We try to develop products that work across a range of ability. We want to make sure that the DIY enthusiast has something that they can use that won't hurt their vehicle. And we also want to make sure that a professional detailer has something that they can use that's going to be a game changer for them, right? And that typically requires a different level of ability than the typical DIY enthusiast. And so I know that as we've gone through that process, and I believe you guys have too, because we've watched your company come up right with ours effectively. We're seeing products being developed that are meeting those specific needs. And I know your line of products is specifically aimed at professional detailers. You already understand that if you're a professional detailer, you know how to apply a ceramic coating. One of the things I love about your line of products is you don't go through the whole BS of getting certified, right? Nobody needs to have a plaque on their wall to apply your product. They just need to know how to apply the product. And for us, obviously, we're not a certified product. We want to be able to have mobile detailers using our product and DIY enthusiasts using our product. And when applicable, we want guys that are putting on high-end coatings using our product too. And that's because that's where our product was born from. At the end of the day, our product was born out of a Porsche, 918 disaster. It was the very first 918 that was built. It was serial number 001. And we didn't use our coating on it. We used somebody else's. And there was an adverse reaction that sent us down a bunny trail of research and development for years to figure out how to move away from using heat lamps with ceramic coatings, because that was where the reaction took place. And now we have an incredible one-step coating, just like you guys do, that does everything we need it to do for our detailers and for the people that buy our products, which is it's a great thing about the products that we produce. But tell us a little bit about CCI. You guys started around the same time that we did. Your focus is specifically around professional detailers. And if I even got more specific, I would say, I think there's a Detail Mafia sign right behind your head. I would say it's even more specific around those guys because those are the best in breed detailers that are out there today in the country.
Yeah, so we basically started with a lot of high-end detailers using our products. And like I said, I had a very unfair advantage coming in this with our company because I've tested everything. I've worked with companies to help them develop. And so I'm not going to make another product just throw in a barrel with everybody else's that performs the same. When I release a product, I know it's Apex, and I don't have to worry about that because I've got data to back that up. But yeah, I mean, we cater mostly to the Detail Mafia certified professional detailer group. These two groups are what we consider some of the best in the country. And these guys also aren't afraid to hurt my feelings. If they're like, hey,
right,
just sit and do what it needs to do, they're going to tell me. And a lot of these guys are endorsed by a bunch of different companies. And, that's how we got into this. Like, hey, we sent this out. Let us know what you think. And now we've got, a ton of installers on both of those groups. We test everything out in the lab. Once I'm happy with it, then I send it to these guys and say, hey, run it through its paces, compare it to what that's in this area. Let us know how it is. So, I mean, that's basically how our company got started.
What would you say the life cycle is on the R&D and testing before you guys are able to feel comfortable enough to launch a product?
Usually a couple of years.
Couple of years.
It's intensive. So, if I say a company does R&D on a product, this isn't intense weekly testing. We sent it to a lab a couple times and we were happy with it. With my company, I am beating this stuff every week in the lab, testing stuff, changing things. So if we take a company average of company A does this amount of R&D in the 2-year span, and my company does it, I would probably say we have 15 to 20 times the amount of R&D and testing in our products versus another company in the same amount of time.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think the advantage that guys like us have is because we own the company. We have the ability to dictate the standard versus larger companies that have a need to get a new product launched. So they're just pushing to get the product out there. I mean, I think we started, if I'm being honest, I think we started testing our Carbon Flex product before you guys incorporated. And we spent, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years, I think, trying to get that product dialed in. We had a great product and it worked great in the mobile detailing space, but we needed it to work great and not do something negative in the DIY space. So tweaking that and getting it dialed in, my marketing guys were driving me crazy because they were ready to go. We want to launch this product. And I'm like, no, we're going to slow roll this because you can only launch it once and I don't want to launch it wrong. I want to make sure that we put out a product that makes sense and works. Well, there was a huge manufacturer that recently launched a DIY ceramic product and sent it out to tons and tons of influencers. Very low cost, 30 milliliter bottle. I think you know who I'm talking about. These guys paid an influencer to do a launch video. But the question that everybody in the industry had was, how much did they have to pay the influencer to do the apology video? Because he came back and did an apology video after it didn't work. And that's not a dig at the company. That's just more of a dig at the process, right? Because hopefully they'll get it right and they'll make it work. But they didn't. But they decided to launch anyway. And for us, it's all about quality of products going out. So we don't want to launch anything until we're absolutely certain that it's going to work and do what we need it to do. And that's why we don't have a graphene product. Plain and simple. Probably why you guys don't have one either, because there's no reason for us to put graphene on a label because we haven't figured out a way to make graphene work in any type of an economical situation that somebody could afford. And I never actually put together the dark pigment in the graphene possibly affecting the color of the vehicle if you had enough graphene in the product to actually make a difference. That's mind-blowing to me. I'm literally thinking about a detailer who buys a bottle of this graphene because they've marketed it and they're like, hey, we're going to put a graphene ceramic coating on your car. Now it's going to cost $10,000. But trust me, it's the greatest thing you could ever do to your vehicle. And they get a customer to buy it. So they have to buy a bottle of this stuff and it's $2,500 instead of $250. And they apply it to this brand new white, 458 Pista, right? We're going to put it on a brand new white Ferrari. And after they apply it, the car turns dull gray, kind of a grayish white, because there's actually enough graphene in the car or in the product to work, which means it's going to tint the color of the vehicle. The process to undo that and how much money that detailer is going to spend is crazy, right? That would be the death of that detailer, right? Because he just took a car that's a $500,000 car and he ruined the paint job. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the guy who owns that car doesn't want the car repainted. He wants it brand new. He wants it fixed, right? He's not running down to Mako to get a $900 paint job because somebody screwed up the coating on his vehicle. So I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that the graphene would change the color of a vehicle if you actually had enough of the additive in your product to make a difference. All right, listen, guys, we have been with Michael Hill today, and this has been an eye-opening conversation. Our goal is to bring guests just like this guy into Beyond the Garage as often as we possibly can. Obviously, like and subscribe. If you guys want more content like this, that would be great. Our goal is just keep pumping it out and keep looking for great guests to bring onto the podcast who can actually open up and bring us some insight about industry news, industry initiatives, industry innovation. And this guy right here, Michael Hill, he kind of covers all three. Whether it's a product that he's launching with his own company, understanding the testing parameters of what everybody goes through in the industry and kind of dispelling the myths of things like graphene and borafene. You mentioned one earlier. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a phene. It was I can't remember what it was, an additive. You said it came and went really fast.
Teflon and then titanium.
Titanium. I remember when everybody wanted titanium infused ceramic. That seemed like it lasted for about 3 weeks.
Until people actually started to put enough in it, and you started giving the glitter sparkles in their coating. You got a metallic substance going in there.
So it was like adding sparkles to your paint. If you got enough of the product in there.
One company had this stuff and actually called it pixie dust. And it was like that was this thing because they had so much of the powdered titanium in it, you would get basically glitter on your paint. So it was an interesting one. I had a bottle of this stuff for 5 or 6 years. I just kept, and I was like, any of my customers, if you want some glitter effect, if you love when your 5-year-olds, throws the glitter up, we can make this thing upon your paint.
Listen, before we let you go, I like to ask everybody when I'm just having conversations about them. I always come up with a couple great questions that are specific to what they do. So you've obviously tested tons of products. What is and without mentioning a name, what is the product that had the greatest promise and the worst results? Can you give us what the barrier was between those? What was the promise and what were the results?
And I think this will still eventually happen as ceramic coating technology pushes forward. You got a lot of products right now that basically you wipe it on the car, it basically seals it up. It adds so much more of a layer to build back up your clear coat. It fixes your scratches, years of neglect, all that type of stuff. There's still companies that are trying to push for this. And they're getting there, but it's not there. But I eventually think that will be a product. Hopefully it'll be in an orange bottle when I figure that out. But yeah, manufacturers are making it a lot harder on us right now because, now over the past 5 or 6 years, your paint systems are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So now when, you used to focus on the American cars, and it's like, yeah, it's just got a good old Southern amount of clear coat on it.
Right.
And you could compound and polish it out 4 or 5 times. And now brand new vehicles, you maybe get one heavy compound and polish on it. And that's all you got.
That's it. The paint's getting thinner. The paint's getting softer.
So, as detailers, that's one of the selling points when we do trainings and things like that, just saying, hey guys, this is giving a sacrificial layer to your paint system. It's going to be taking the damage and preserving that little amount of paint that you have from the factory. So huge thing. So yeah.
In our industry, what percentage of products would you say are made in the USA versus made overseas?
That's probably a very low percentage.
Low percentage being in the US?
Yes. We've got a couple of blenders here that make a lot of stuff.
I know your products are made in the US. I know my products are made in the US. And I know that there's a couple of large blenders that private label for several manufacturers that are made in the US. But I also know that there are just a ton of products that are being imported from, South Korea or Taiwan or Asia in general, China, a lot of stuff coming out of China, which I think will be interesting to see how tariffs affects any of those products as they're coming into the US and what that'll do to the market.
If you take those blending companies that are here and the companies here, I guess in more sitting here thinking about that, you've got a lot more that are made here, but a vast majority of your cheaper products are definitely imported.
Okay. Interesting. Well, listen, guys, if you got questions, throw them into the comments below because one of the things that we want to make sure we're doing is getting back with everybody with answers. And if it's a question for me or whether it's a question for Mike, put it into the comments. We'll make sure that somebody sees that and gets you guys back the appropriate answer. But the way to make sure you're getting those answers is obviously to like and subscribe to this channel. Once again, everything we do starts in the garage, but this podcast tries to take it beyond the garage. Michael Hill, thank you so much for joining us today. And we wish you nothing but success with the growth of your company and everything that you guys are doing. Thanks, man.
Well, absolutely. I want to throw this out there, everybody. When you guys are looking for a company, especially to base your business off of, or if you just got your dream car, do a lot of research before you decide on a company, and make sure you're not buying into marketing, that you're actually buying into a product that these companies have put a lot into development, and not just putting something out there and putting a marketing scheme behind it and selling it. That will save you a lot of heartache and make your customers happy. Because if you get behind something that works, that the company has put time and effort behind, then that it's much easier to sell a product that you believe in, and that the companies that are making it have your best interest in mind. So that's what you want to be at.
So let me just say, this is bonus footage right now, guys. And what Mike is saying is absolutely the truth. Our company spends more money on social media than most others that are out there. And we've seen every claim that has come across the board. I know the one that Mike and I joke about the most is a brand that used to advertise spraying their product on a vehicle's hood and then lighting the hood on fire. The claim was, look, you can spray this on your hood and fire won't even affect your hood. They were also a company that claimed you'll never have to wash your car again, which, as anybody knows, is crazy. You're going to continue to have to wash your car unless you put the product on your car and you never drive your car again. You put it in a glass box and it never comes out ever again. The advertising and the marketing, which is really the crux of this conversation today, because graphene is really just a marketing tool, right? The term graphene is just something to catch your attention. It's the hook, if you would, in the marketing. All the marketing stuff is easy to do, right? Everybody can come up with a great claim. Everybody can come up with a fancy term. But the manufacturers that are actually putting products out there that work are the ones that you want to be looking for. And the claim isn't going to be in a buzzword or in a hook of, drive your car into a concrete wall and there won't be a scratch on it because you've put our product on it that you bought for $29.95 online. We see stuff like that. And obviously you're laughing because it's a reality. People run those ads all the time. And we have to walk a very fine line in the advertising that we do, where we're looking for a hook to get people in without sensationalizing a product beyond what its capacity is. And the best thing you can do with any of these manufacturers that are out there today, whether you are doing paint correction, standard detailing, whether you're doing clay barring work, whether you're doing acid removal, whether you're doing water spot removal, whatever level you're at as a detailer or a DIY enthusiast, whether it's just a basic wash or you're putting on a full coating, you got to understand how the products work, and you got to go with a company that understands how the products work. Because there's so many brands out there today that are just a white label, right? Hey, I started a brand. And the only effort that they've put into the brand was, what does my label look like that I'm going to put on the bottle that I get in the mail that somebody else filled for me? And Mike, better than I do, the number of private label companies that are out there that just pull a product off of a formulation catalog and say, yeah, give me that, make it green, and here's my label. Or in some cases, they just make the label for you. And that's not really innovation. That's not really developing great products. That's just buying products and putting your label on it. And as a detailer or a DIY enthusiast, you need to know that not only does the product stand up, but the company stands up behind the product. That somebody at the company actually knows how the product works. If you call Michael's company, you call CCI right now, you're going to get somebody on the phone, probably Michael, if not one of their team, and they're going to be able to tell you in specificity how their products work. You reach out to our company online. If our customer service can't answer the question, they escalate. And it typically comes to me, because at the end of the day, that's where the buck stops. The buck always stops with the guy that owns the company. And if the guy that owns the company doesn't know what he's talking about, you've picked the wrong company, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. You've picked the wrong company if nobody in the company understands their products. So make sure that you are trying products, seeing if they work for you, if they fit into your niche, if they produce the way you want them to. You got to try the company out too. Make sure that customer service actually calls you back, that you can engage with somebody in person. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there today, Mike. You know that these tools are out there. They exist. Everybody's trying to implement things like, AI call centers and Autobot, email responses. And listen, it's part of the equation. We all have to do it as we grow because the economic scale of our business ramping up typically means we're behind the 8 ball as far as hiring quality people. So what we need to make sure that we're getting out to all of our customers is that even though we're implementing all of these different technologies, we know what we're talking about. And guys like you that are in this industry, more so than me, hold our industry accountable. You guys are out there basically telling everybody what works and what doesn't work. And I know for the longest time, you maintained what I would call independent third-party status because you didn't have a product that was your own. Now, somebody could say today, well, you're only going to talk about your product, but you didn't even mention the name of your company on the podcast. I had to do that. And that's because that's not how you operate. You operate off of a set of principles and integrity that has you talking about the industry and the products in the industry that make sense. And if your product makes sense for somebody, they're going to figure that out. At the end of the day, the selling of the product figures itself out. It's making sure you have a product that works, making sure you have a product that you can support, and making sure that you have a product that people can believe in. That's what's going to keep them coming back.
100%.
So that was the bonus footage right there. For those of you that didn't like and subscribe when I asked you to last time, but you stuck with us, make sure you do it now. And tune in for the next episode of Beyond the Garage when we bring another great guest in to the studio to talk about how you can elevate the aftercare of your vehicle. Have a good day, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.